Can we just have a show of hands of how many of you have installed I2B2 before? Okay. So I see that maybe 10% of the room or maybe 20% of the room has installed I2B2 before. Now, you've been here for the I2B2 conference and you've been seeing all this exciting stuff happening. I2B2 is adopted for so many national projects, and you saw all the cool stuff which is coming. And I hope that has inspired you to go back and install I2B2. So this is a good chance. So I think this session is intentionally towards the end, so that okay, you've inspired enough and you want to try out installing I2B2 on your own. So if I were to tell you that you could do it in a few minutes, it's a bit hard to believe, but that's what you will do in this hands-on demo. Okay. So if you have a machine with you which has Docker installed on it, you can just follow the commands which I showed to you, and you'll have I2B2 running on your machine in no time. If not, I have a few Amazon instances. I've got 20 of them. I don't know if they'll be sufficient for everybody. So I do have 20 of them, and you can play along. You can log on to the instances and run the commands and see if I2B2 comes up, right? So to log on to your machine, click on the machine tab, and what you do is that before anybody else, go and type your name so that machine is reserved for you. You go and type your name. And you have you try running this command. You open up a shell on your machine and just SSH. And the password is I2B2 2026 for everyone. Anybody able to log in? Let me see if I can do it myself. It works. Are you all here? Can you just raise your hand if you're successful to log in? Okay, Kevin is here. Okay. Avan's here. Okay, while we are waiting for others, let me just give an overview. So there's another link in the resources, the first link that called the Docker manual. And that has got all this description about how, about the Docker ecosystem. I think the first time we made this presentation was exactly 9 years ago. Because my daughter's 9 years old now. And it's the exact same commands that we have been running to install, to have I2B2 running. But what has changed over time is the maturity of the ecosystem and the security, maturity, the documentation, right? And this manual actually we focused a lot in the last 1 year, and many of you on the room have contributed to this. So this manual, the way you read it is that it has got, let me just walk you through the manual and then we can come back to our hands-on. That's sort of the way. I'm just looking at the ecosystem figure. Okay, here it is. So you've looked at on the left side here, pointer works. You got the GitHub repos, right? The core server data and the web client repos. And then Docker kind of, we have done two things. So Docker is for instantiating, and having it running. But the way now, if you go to I2B2 repos, as of this week, you have the code to compile the containers yourself. So if you were to fork this repo, I know Mark and Jeff have kind of merged it now. So if you go and fork this repo and make a repo of your own, you will be able to compile all the Docker containers yourself. And you would know it's very transparent on what goes inside the containers, right? So that was one concern people raised, is that if the Docker containers are built by somebody else and uploaded to Docker Hub, you're not sure what's inside of it, right? It's difficult to convince your security team of what's in there. So now you're able to compile the containers yourself. In fact, if you fork this, GitHub will compile them for you without you having to run it on your machine, right? And so there are GitHub actions, and if you make a change, you fork the code and you make a change, or you trigger the compilation, the containers will be compiled in your GitHub account. So this is what we have done, what the team has done, and when you compile images and push them into your own Docker Hub gives you the security report, right? Which the team is doing now for you. It gives you the security report, what Sean mentioned about, the latest security things which are out there, right? And we kind of make an effort to monitor it and release updated containers. So the container release is a little bit more granular, supposed to be more granular than the I2B2 release, right? Apart from the features, because the security issues which may come up. And there are really two buckets of security issues. One is in I2B2 itself, and secondly is in the dependencies, right? Which may exist on your machine. And because we are packaging them inside the container, that is less worry on the end user side, right? Okay, so that's what really the team does. We'll look at the security reports and kind of issue new images out there. Okay, and this is what you're going to do today, right? You're going to use the Docker Hub containers to install I2B2 on your own machine. And there are really four kinds of people, four scenarios, four kinds of people who attempt to install I2B2. First one, like what we're doing over here, is just a demo install. I want to see, there's no production data. I just want to see how it works, right? And be comfortable with it, which is what we'll do. That is the new Docker-based demo install. Second one is, okay, you have a database somewhere which is blank, and you want to use that production database, and you want to initialize it using the Docker schema, using the I2B2 schema. And so that is the second use case, right? And once you've populated that, or you have an existing I2B2 database somewhere, you want to install the web client and the services. That's the third use case. So they kind of build on each other, right? So they build up in complexity and progression. And the last one is you have everything working. You just want to update, right? So all these scenarios are what the manual covers. Okay, so what happens? Why really do this? And Sean spoke about it. One is that it, and Kevin is going to present, how and use case. So we're going to present a couple of use cases of what happens when you use I2B2 using Docker. So one is that you can focus on building additional functionality, right? Otherwise, a lot of the time, because once you know that the core, you're able to compile the core I2B2, or what do I call it? The I2B2 instance, not the instance, the core I2B2 functionality. You're able to build additional functionality on top. That gives you the stepping stone to go ahead and build. And I'm going to talk about this ML containers which we built, right? So it's kind of Lego blocks. So if you have access to the fundamental Lego blocks, you can add, and that's how the community can really grow, right? So I2B2 is, the conference has been around for so long. I've been here for the last 11 years. But I2B2 is not just the tool, it is the community who has been installing it and has been used in national projects, right? And because it's so huge and heavy, it moves slowly in one dimension because there's a lot of legacy, everybody has to come along. But on the other hand, if you search in PubMed for I2B2, you'll find people come up with a lot of innovations, right? So you might find people have reinvented the fact table, people have reinvented, a whole lot of functionality, and then the I2B2 team kind of, picks up those things and integrates them into the main I2B2 open source version. People themselves contribute. So the contribution from the open source community is kind of critical. And that is where has been the stumbling block, because it used to take effort to install I2B2. But now when you have this core functionality, the hope is that it will accelerate contributions from the community, because now you can quickly build the core functionality and now you can innovate on top. Okay, so let's go back to our demo. And so you're going to run 4 commands, right? So if you look at the use case, the first use case, I'm just going back in the manual. Here are the 4 use cases. Look at the index. So quick start, okay. So generating the I2B2 Docker containers is the new stuff that we have built. The GitHub pipelines to build the containers, which you can do. But for now, we'll look at how do you quick start the demo install, right, of I2B2. I just lose the script. Okay. So this is what you do. Run git clone. And you can copy this command. I'll put it over here for ease. I'll put it in the Excel file. You can follow along and git clone. And then you go to the Postgres directory. And you say Docker compose up. Now, if you're using the workspace I provided, you might have to put a dash between Docker and compose. It's kind of running an older version of Docker. The new version of Docker, compose is provided as a argument to Docker itself. So I'll put a dash between Docker and compose. Okay, so let's do it over here. Okay, you see that's clone the repository, and I can go into I2B2 Docker and Postgres. We'll try Postgres. You could try any of them. Let's take Postgres. You could try Oracle or MS SQL. I say Docker compose up. So it's pulled the containers and it pulled them pretty fast, and it's kind of spinning them up. They're running. You can go to your browser and type the IP address. this is your machine. So I guess the IP address will be HTTP. Web client. You also have support 8080 and web client. So if I were to click this, it's still spinning up. I will remove the S. You don't have a secure certificate. Take out the S from here. Okay, do you have it? Do you have I2B2 running on port 80? Okay. Can you just raise your hand if you're able to see the login page? Okay, I see 2 show of hands. Others, are they following along? Are you stuck somewhere? Well, this is a hands-on, so don't feel shy to ask for help from your neighbor. Okay, we'll give them time to complete it, and we can just look at I'll look at another example what happened. So yeah, can they do local host? Yeah, if they're running it on your local machine, it's got to be local host. But right now, yeah. So if you are doing these steps on your local machine, obviously you will put local host. But if you are using those machines which I gave you, these are Amazon, EC2 medium, EC2 3A medium machines, and they're just sufficient to run. Say it again. Yeah. Because you're running it, using the shell on those machines, right? Yeah. Those are EC2 instances. There are 20 of them, right? And we just spun up for this hour. Okay. Okay, let me, so when you have I2B2 built as Lego blocks, you could really innovate and build other functionality. So one quick stuff which we worked on is this machine learning. The ability to do machine learning on I2B2 data, right? So this is a paper which just got published last week. I'll just give you a quick overview and how this builds on top of the containers, right? And you could probably, and Kevin is going to talk about how he's built this on a lot of other functionality on top of the I2B2 containers. So what's critical in this, in this paper is, I think this graph. If you look at this graph, look at this picture. Okay. So the I2B2 fact table is nothing but they are longitudinal journeys of the patient, right? So each of this line is a journey of a patient, right? And if you were to say, I want to build a machine learning model in I2B2, right, which takes a set of patients. So I tell the module that here is a set of patients which have the label which I'm interested in predicting. And here is a set of patients who doesn't have the label. Okay. Can you go ahead and build a machine learning model and having built and store the model in I2B2 itself? Right. So for example, let's say I build a machine learning module for predicting patients having type 2 diabetes. Right. So I want in the I2B2 ontology there to be a concept or a hierarchy which says machine learning disease risk, type 2 diabetes risk. Okay. So I kind of specify that I want you to put the model, I want you to put the model at the, in this hierarchy and apply the facts to the database and apply the model to these patients, and whatever scores come out, put those scores back into I2B2. Right? This is what the module does. Okay. Look at this API. So there are these two APIs. This whole paper is about these two APIs. You can see this, right? So it says, okay, build a model for predicting type 2 diabetes risk. Here is the path in the ontology where I want you to put the facts resulting from the models. And here is a code I want you to use for the concepts which go in. And obviously the risk is going to be an integer. And here are these other criteria, right? Okay, here is the, patient set in I2B2, which has got, so you kind of first go ahead and create a patient set, right? Which, Jeff showed to you in the morning. So these patients are positive for diabetes. These are negative for diabetes, right? And I want you to use all data under these paths, okay? Maybe ICD codes or, labs, right? So you kind of specify all of them as an array. And whether they have diabetes or not, is that event is labeled in this part in the hierarchy, okay? And I want you to restrict your analysis to this start period and this end period, and keep a buffer of 2 days before the, cut the data out 2 days before the event, because sometimes, the time is not exactly recorded, or there might be, data leakage, right? So to prevent that, you have a time buffer. You call this, and I2B2 will do all that for you in the backend. And in a few minutes, you will see the model getting deposited and that ontology available. Obviously, you have to call the second, you have to call the second API to apply the model. Okay, you want to say, okay, here the model is here now. I want you to apply the model to patients, in this set, in this target patient set, right? So I2B2 will compute the facts, the scores, and put them back. All this is happening in the background without you downloading any data. Right? Just 2 API calls. So the machine learning model is deposited as a concept blob inside I2B2. Okay? So obviously this is proof of concept, and we have done it, we have applied it to the mimic data set, huge million patient record. It works quite well. And that's what the paper is about, right? So all this is possible because you have the Lego building blocks of the Docker container, Docker containers. Okay. So let me stop here because I want Kevin to also present, the work that he has done. Any questions about, any questions about running the exercise or about anything else? Yeah, please.
Once you have everything running, how do you log into the database directly?
How do you log in? It's just a normal login to the web client.
Okay.
That's a good question. After you do that, how do you, how do you log back in? That's through the web client. Right? So right now, the machine learning lacks the web client interface. And we've not released the web client interface. So it's via API calls. Yeah, Kevin, why don't you come along and present?